Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Tonight, this is the meeting of Town of LaSalle Committee of Adjustment. I'm going to take roll call since this is virtual. When I call your name, please indicate that you're present either verbally or through a wave, please. James Blascario.
Present.
Vince Marcotte.
Here.
Valentina Bernoni.
Here.
And Teresa Nicodemo.
Here.
All right. Ryan Tufts, Planning Technician, Secretary of Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment.
Here.
And Alan Burgess, Supervisor of Planning and Development.
Here.
And I'm your chairperson. My name is John Lee. All applications are subject to a 20-day appeal period. Any person desiring to appeal a decision of this Committee of Adjustment may, upon request in writing to the Secretary, receive a copy of the decision to be used for an appeal. The fee for filing an appeal can be obtained from the Secretary Treasurer. Please be reminded that this is a virtual meeting of the Committee of Adjustment, and we would ask for your patience as we go through the meeting. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest tonight? None. So noted. Could I have an adoption of the minutes for September 16th, 2020 meeting, please? Is there a motion? Vince, second.
I'll second.
Jim, and that carries. Are there, Mr. Tufts, is there any requests for deferral or withdrawal of any applications tonight? None noted. Current applications. So the first one for tonight is B10 and 11/20, file number 4096 for Ellis Street. Application for consent, and it's Creekside LaSalle. I understand Mr. Tanner is here to speak. I see Mr. Valenti is here. Mr. Tanner, you may speak to the matter. Please introduce yourself and provide an explanation of your application. And please confirm that you've read and understood the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have. My name is Carl Tanner with Dillon Consulting. I'm a planner. And I have Peter Valente with me. Obviously, you can see on the screen. The applications before you are consent applications. I have read the report and I could speak to them briefly. I know that there's a series of applications today. So if we do the consent first, then we'll come to the variances after, I assume, Mr. Chair?
That's correct.
Okay, just to make things easy, and this is my first time with this particular committee, I'm going to just share my screen just so that the committee members understand the severances that are being proposed. And if, somebody has disabled my screen sharing.
That would be Mr. Koch.
Okay, no problem. I'll just speak to it this way. And maybe the committee has copies of the figures that were submitted. Oh, Alan? Oh, okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. So to help the committee out, we've submitted a series of figures, and they're likely in your package as well. Just to put things into perspective, the property that we are looking for severance on is the blue and red piece here. It is Ellis Street or Trinity and goes up here this way. To give you a point of reference, the Zayres store is right here. And the municipal building is kind of down here to the southwest. The first applications before you are to sever out the red parcel from the larger parcel to allow for a creation of condominium. And this is a standard practice we do when we have multiple buildings on one site. We quite often come to Committee of Adjustments for consent to sever. And this will be the first part of the applications before you this evening. It is it's fairly standard. It's a technical severance. It is really, nothing really changes other than we are creating a condo corporation on the property in the very near future. And so we need the severance in order to create that condominium. So what the committee is being asked to do here is to sever out the red piece from the larger parcel, leaving the blue lands as retained. And I would be available for any questions. If Peter, do you want to add anything to this at this point?
He's on mute.
Okay.
Yes, I would. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I know that there's there's some letters from the neighbors and everything like that. So just to give a little bit of history, we went through a rezoning process somewhere around 12 months ago, and the property was subject to an appeal from Loblaws, which we ended up settling, and it was based on just them worried about noise coming from their store impacting the future residents, and we've worked with them, and we've established certain parameters in order to get that appeal resolved. So just to drive home on what Carl has said to you, this is the reason for that we're before you is to carve the property into 2 lots. If this severance is turned down today, the project proceeds under 1 lot. So we're not debating the project. We're debating whether it's acceptable to sever the property into 2 lots. And if the neighbors have any concerns with the separation of the properties into 2 lots, which what happens is when you sever this property into 2 lots, then you need a bunch of variances, because now we're not dealing the site as 1, we're dealing with the site as 2. And that's the reason for the severance that's before you. And it's for mortgaging purposes. It's enabling us to get a partial discharge of the original seller mortgage and put a new mortgage to start the first phase of the development, which will be the building that is most westerly located. And Carl can probably even bring it up on the screen. It's the one that aligns with Zares to the west.
That's right. It's the one that's adjacent to the parking lot to the west.
Right. So we're not asking for relief so that I can build a bigger project. I'm not asking for relief so that I can intensify the site. I can, not asking for relief to cause more traffic. I'm not asking for relief for anything. Just taking 1 property and dividing it into 2, and that's why the reliefs are before you. So so that building that you're seeing there, that's kind of right there. That would be the initial building being constructed. And the reason why we're before you is to separate it into 2 lots so I can get a discharge under the mortgage and register a new construction loan to start building the first 58-unit building.
Yes, the other 2 buildings to the east are on the 2nd lot or the retained parcel.
Correct.
It would be a 2nd phase. And you can see from this site plan that the severance line comes up and provides street frontage to Trinity or Ellis here. So it's this parcel, this piece of the property that we are asking for severance. So.
And I have nothing further to add other than I'm available here if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti, Mr. Tanner. Committee members, do any of you have any questions for Mr. Tanner or Mr. Valenti?
Just some clarification on the gray areas that are, right there. What are they? Because I was late coming into this meeting, so I didn't have time to get myself more versed into this. And I was looking at this on the plan. I couldn't figure out what they were. At first, I thought they were small buildings. Are they parking structures?
There are garages.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Hey,
So
Peter,
there's-
can I ask, is there access other than Trinity or Alice to this? Is there access from the parking lot? I'm just curious more than anything. Is that the only access to this building property?
There's a 2nd access here.
Phase 1?
Oh, phase 1, yes. There's just 1 access point, yes.
That's okay. I just wondered. So, okay.
Committee members, any questions for administration?
Yes, just quick clarification. I happen to be at a rezoning, and the people on Serenity were not happy. And just so I totally understand, for whatever reason, they did not appeal this application through the rezoning process.
That is correct. No notices were requested to the clerk's office in order to for an appeal, and nor were any appeals received other than the appeal from the Zares store.
Okay, so the time frame came and went, and
The time frame elapsed no appeals were received other than the appeal which has been resolved with theirs. And at this point, the concept of development is being established. The setbacks were all established at that council meeting and through the bylaws which were passed. At this point, as Mr. Tanner rightfully said, and Mr. Valente, that this is merely a technical severance to divide this property, really to be able to be in a position to release the mortgage. And again, then the secondary application for consent that's before you tonight is for the purposes of the easements, which therefore allows the crossover of services for parking, access, as well as the common areas for the site.
Is there any, I'm sorry, is there any view in the future of that whole site being back to one?
I would ask Mr. Tanner or Mr. Valente may be able to answer that. It's possible through the Condominium Act, I believe that the condominiums can be consolidated back to one, but I would ask.
Okay, so for purposes of this will end up actually being part one and part two will be two different condominium associations and everything.
Potentially, yes.
To start, okay.
But keep in mind though, what we're establishing through this evening's meeting is that those easements and for crossover, for, like I said, for parking, for access, for services, they're already going to be established even before the condominiums are even established.
Yeah, so it's just making legal, if it stays this way, there's no problem legally in the future. All setbacks,
and that's what the easements are for.
yeah, all the setbacks will be met individually.
That's correct. So even if Vince, Mr. Marcotte, if you were to say, for instance, be the condominium developer of part two and Mr. Valente continue to own part one, those two developments could still proceed with our as separate ownerships as a result of because of the subsequent variances which were also being applied for and the consents that are being granted or being requested. Sorry.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. Having heard comments and concerns made by administration, agencies, and the public, is the committee ready to make a decision? Is there a motion?
You have anybody from the public here?
Yeah, thank you.
No, there's not.
The only thing that's been received are the comments which have already been given to the committee as well as given to Mr. Tanner and Mr. Valente. We have not received any requests to appear before the Zoom meeting or before the committee.
Well, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
Will those become part of the minutes just so we have it, so they know we've seen them and we've acted accordingly?
So as part of the minutes, basically, there will be a comment that correspondence was received from
The
Stanfield, and that it was received and that it's being considered as part of the committee considerations.
yes, so that they don't come back, we didn't look at it, we did.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Somebody move it.
Teresa?
Yep.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Valentina? That
Yeah.
carries. Thank you.
So, so there's actually two motions, just for a point of clarification.
Yes.
So the first motion that you would have just did was for the actual consent to sever. The
Yes.
second motion will be for the consent for easements.
Okay.
And then likewise, when we enter into the minor variances, there will also be two motions. One will be for the first minor variance, and the second one will be for the second one that's been applied for.
Okay.
We need one more motion for.
One more motion. Do
Did
we
they
have a-
vote on the first motion, Alan? I didn't see.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, that passed. So for the second motion,
For the reciprocal access, yeah, I'll give you the first. Yeah,
Vince and Valentina.
Yeah.
That carries.
Okay.
All right, second application A05 and 0620, file 4097 Ellis Street, and its application for minor variance. It's Creekside LaSalle, and Mr. Tanner and Mr. Valente, go ahead.
Sure, and make sure, I'm hoping I got the right order of these. The next variance is as you created lot number 1, and I'm just going to share my screen again, just sorry, I turned it off. As you created lot number 1, we'll call it. This has frontage on Trinity or Ellis Street, it's literally known as Trinity. The issue is that with the creation of the lot, it doesn't have adequate frontage on a municipal right-of-way. And so therefore we need to have a variance. This speaks to maybe some of the neighbors' concerns, whether or not there's an impact on them personally. The variance that we're looking for on lot number 1 is associated with the frontage on the right of way, because we only have a certain amount of space, right? So we're asking for a reduction in front yard in frontage, and that's actually where the variance is required, is in this piece right here. I don't know if you want to speak to this one first, and then I can move on to the next one.
Get dealt with individually.
Yeah, I can zoom.
Any members, do you have any questions for Mr. Tanner, Mr. Valente?
Yes, how much of a variance is it?
Thank you for the question. I believe, and Alan, you can correct if I'm wrong. I believe, and I'm going to flip the feet now. I think the minimum frontage is 70 feet, I believe, and we are looking at frontage of 65 feet. So again, one of the things that we do, one of the things we do look at with regards to minor variances, there are 4 tests that we look at under the Planning Act. Is it minor in nature, appropriate, and meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the general intent of the OP? In this particular case, it does. Again, it's a slight reduction, and it's mainly because that is the only frontage we have on a municipal right of way.
Just for clarification to the committee, when council approved the development of the entire site, what we looked at and what we determined to be the frontage. Carl, can you zoom back out to the whole site? So if you look across the front of building A, that is considered the frontage of the site. So we created a site-specific zone requirement, recognizing that whole site was going to be 1 at the time. And that's why even when we talk about rear yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, it was all on the basis of this site plan. Had it been known at the time when we were having those discussions that we were going to have to go down this path of dividing the property up into 2 sites, those frontages would have been discussed at additional detail, and we would have had different setbacks put into the zoning bylaw to recognize the specific nature of why that frontage is required on that technical basis. So hopefully that maybe answers some questions for the committee.
Any other questions for Mr. Tanner, Mr. Valente, or of administration? No. All right. Haven't heard any comments, concerns made by administration, agencies, and the public, of which there are none here tonight. Is the council ready? Is the committee ready to make a decision? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Vince,
I'll
second by
second.
Jim. That carries. Okay, Mr. Tanner, you can go on with the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Alan's explanation from the last application. So if, as you recall, this is the frontage for lot number 2. And because we are severing out building C and the driveway that goes back to Trinity here, we end up with, this is now the rear lot line. And I'll take you back to this. So this is now the rear lot line of lot number 2. And so as a result, we need to ensure that we have to adhere to the rear yard setback. We're asking for a variance because of the distance from the corner building here to the new property line. And we're sitting at 2.3 meters. And the rear yard escapes me at the present moment. Maybe Alan recalls. I
just have to look it up, Carl.
Yeah, I've just completely, it just slipped my mind. But this is the reason for the variance, is this rear yard setback.
Right there.
Yeah. So as you can see, when I read the concerns of the neighbors that live in the general area, you can understand how sometimes people get confused, or at least they don't have all the information. There really is no impact on the neighbors on Serenity Circle with regards to a variance for a rear yard setback here. So we're not changing anything. We're just coming into good stead with the zoning bylaw.
So the former rear yard setback was 6.7 meters. So which is,
yeah. And we are requesting 2.34, again, technical issue because of where the buildings sit. And as we've go through site plan control, these matters.
and again, in this instance, sorry, just for further clarification, that limit to the other side of the roadway was actually considered a side yard when the overall site was considered and when it was one line. So again, it's only as a result of the proposed consents that there's the need for this yard, or this yard becomes a rear yard.
That's essentially the fire route, that variance. Is that correct?
No, actually, like I said, that used to be just a side yard setback. So as a side yard setback, we only required 3 meters. So they were well in excess of the minimum side yard setback.
Right. Okay.
One site. But again, because now we have subdivided the property with the consent, the variance becomes necessary.
Okay.
That is a fire route and roadway into the property now.
It is, and it's still going to be protected, and the building isn't encroaching into it. The fire route is still and Mr. Tanner can confirm for me, but the fire route is still the same size and requirements.
Yeah.
That meets the standard for sure.
Yeah.
It actually exceeds it.
Yeah.
That does become the road in and out of part 1 though, correct?
Keep in mind, because of the variant or the consents to easements that you've granted, they will also be able to travel through the entirety of the site where buildings B and C are located.
Right.
So they will be able to travel all the way across and then come back out. So there'll always be that ability for 2 points of access.
Right.
And it's just during for the purposes of the application, that is their primary means onto the site.
But if the market was to dry up a bit and things got tight, they could proceed with part 1 and their access would be on Trinity at the curb, one way in only and out.
And we have not written the development agreement as of yet. And that will have to be something which will be discussed as far as whether or not there would be the need for, again, if fire determined that, whether we would need to establish and have that as an emergency route if building A were to proceed first, or sorry, building C, am I right?
That's correct, yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So if building C were to proceed, we would confirm with fire whether or not whether a temporary fire route would have to be established across there. We are also going to be, as a subsequent matter, there's also going to be some additional parking at the town's parking area behind the cenotaph. So there may also be an opportunity for some form of an emergency access there should it be necessary.
All right.
All right, committee members, any other questions for Mr. Tanner, Mr. Valente, or for administration?
Just to Mr. Tanner, I might, the way you did it on the screen here and everything is so much better. As far as the emails that we got where they couldn't understand it, I couldn't understand them because of the scale. So thank you for being this technically and able to blow this up so that we actually know where the variances actually went. So it was well done, well
Thank you.
presented. He's taking your money, but he's worth it right now, Peter.
Well, we're all
Thanks for driving my rates up.
All right, having heard any comments, concerns made by administration agencies or the public, is the committee ready to make a decision? Your motion. Valentina,
Yep.
Teresa,
Yeah, it's all good.
that carries.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks everybody, and I agree. Carl and Alan did a great job explaining everything. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for everybody's help.
Yeah,
We
good
need
luck.
to, oh, they did both of them? Okay, sorry.
Okay. So next meeting is Wednesday, December 18th, 2020 at 5 o'clock. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Did you say December or is it November?
November.
November, yeah.
Just a little clarification there, Chief.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Next meeting, Wednesday, November the 18th, 2020 at 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Motion
Jim,
to adjourn.
Teresa, thank you. Everybody have a great night. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Good,
you.
thank
Yeah.
you.
yeah, bye-bye.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Hi.